of Sri Vrindavan Das Thakur, the author of Chaitanya Bhagavad and Chaitanya Mangal. And I don't want to steal the thunder from Yashodadalal Prabhu. He has prepared a wonderful class on Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur. So without further ado, we'll give him a warm welcome and a Hari Bol. And it's all yours now, Yashodadalal Prabhu. Thank you very much for gracing ISKCON Connecticut online platform today.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Am I allowed to share? Am I a co-host?
Yes, Prabhuji, you have screen sharing rights. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So I will share my screen. You can see it, yeah?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah.
Okay, we'll start with Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So before we begin to talk about the great personality whose appearance day is today, I would like to read from a couple of different Srimad Bhagavatam verses that will set the stage, and then we can launch into the story, the life and teachings of Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur. So this is from the section where Vidura is addressing Maitreya Muni in Srimad Bhagavatam 3.13.3. Charitam tasya rajarsher adi rajasya sattama bruhi me shradadhanaya vishwakshena ashrayo hi asau. So translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. O best of the virtuous, the original king of kings, Manu, was a great devotee of the personality of Godhead. And thus it is worth hearing of his sublime character and activities. Please describe them. I'm very eager to hear. Personality of Godhead, Hari. I had the dialogue box in between, so I couldn't read some of the words. Now it's okay. Purport. Srimad Bhagavatam is full of the transcendental topics of the personality of Godhead and his pure devotees. In the absolute world, there is no difference in quality between the Supreme Lord and his pure devotee. Therefore, hearing the topics of the Lord and hearing of the character and activities of the pure devotee have the same result, namely the development of devotional service. So Srila Prabhupada is making it very clear that hearing the topics of Krishna and hearing of the character and activities of Krishna's pure devotees have the same result, that is the development of bhakti or devotional service. And the verse talks about how Vidura, he's eagerly asking Maitreya Muni, who is in the position of guru to him, is saying the original king of kings, Manu, was a great devotee of the personality of Godhead, Hari, and thus it is worth hearing of his sublime character and activities. That word thus is so important. Why does he want to hear about Manu? Because Manu was a great devotee of the personality of Godhead. So I want to bring in a couple of other verses and references, and then we will get into today's topic. So next verse, 3:13:4 from Bhagavatam. Shrutasya pumsam suchira shramasya nanu anjasa surubir idito artha tattad gunanu shravanam mukunda padar vindam hridayeshu yesham. Translation: persons who hear from a spiritual master with great labor and for a long time must hear from the mouths of pure devotees about the character and activities of pure devotees. Pure devotees always think within their hearts of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, who awards his devotees liberation. Purport to this verse by Srila Prabhupada. Transcendental students are those who undergo great penance in being trained by hearing the Vedas from a bona fide spiritual master. Not only must they hear about the activities of the Lord but they must also hear about the transcendental qualities of the devotees who are constantly thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord within their hearts. A pure devotee of the Lord cannot be separated from the lotus feet of the Lord for even a moment. Undoubtedly, the Lord is always within the hearts of all living creatures, but they hardly know about it because they are deluded by the illusory material energy. Purport continued. The devotees, however, realize the presence of the Lord, and therefore they can always see the lotus feet of the Lord within their hearts. Such pure devotees of the Lord are as glorious as the Lord. They are, in fact, recommended by the Lord as more worshipable than He Himself. Let that sink into all of us. Such pure devotees of the Lord are as glorious as the Lord. They are, in fact, recommended by the Lord as more worshipable than He Himself. Worship of the devotee is more potent than worship of the Lord. It is therefore the duty of the transcendental students to hear of pure devotees, as explained by similar devotees of the Lord, because one cannot explain about the Lord or his devotee unless one happens to be a pure devotee himself. So at this stage, I will pause before going on to the next and last slide for now. Um, so at this stage, a natural question might arise in your mind. Well, Srila Prabhupada says that it is the duty of students of transcendence to hear of pure devotees, as explained by similar devotees of the Lord. So Yashoda Dulal is hardly a devotee, let alone an advanced devotee or let alone a pure devotee. So does that mean that this is a complete waste of time? Well, so I've heard it from different authorities in our bhakti tradition that as long as the speaker of transcendental topics from Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and so on, as long as they simply repeat the words of the previous acharyas, their talk will be potent. Now, obviously, if you're listening to a great pure devotee, the value you get from hearing from him or her is different. But as long as the speaker of spiritual topics does not concoct anything and sticks to repeating the words of the previous acharyas, then that talk will also have great effect in the heart. So it's not self-serving for me to say that, yes, it is not a waste of your time to be hearing this topic, because I intend to and I pray to simply repeat the words of Srila Prabhupada and other great souls, as we will see and I will quote as we go through this discussion. So Prabhupada and Maitreya Muni are very, very clear, and Vidura also, a great soul. They're very clear that hearing about the devotee is as important. And it's not just something that is nice to do, but it is something that is absolutely required for students of Krishna Bhakti. I remember being in a lecture by Srila Niranjan Swami at his Vyasa Puja in Hartford, actually, Connecticut. It wasn't in your center, it was in a different place, but it was in your city. And this was probably 2 or 3 years ago in December. And the entire topic, after Srila Niranjan Swami had listened to the offerings of the various devotees who were present, almost his entire lecture was focused on how vital, how essential, and how critically important it is for us all to constantly hear about the glories of Srila Prabhupada. There are so many biographies and so many memories and remembrances of devotees that we are fortunate to have in our, at our fingertips, whether online or in book form, and more are coming out, thank God. And as a result, we are able to see the unlimited facets, the unlimited glories of our Srila Prabhupada, as seen by the different devotees who served him and served with him and have been serving for the past 5 decades. Once he disappeared, past 4+ decades. And so these remembrances and these memories, they enlighten our heart, and they make us jubilant and hopeful, because we see how Srila Prabhupada would deal with different aspects of life, different problems, and the solutions that he would propose. And different devotees have different viewpoints and different facets of understanding. And so when we hear more and more about the devotee from different devotees, then we actually get a deeper understanding of great souls. And it is to our benefit. Krishna says in Gita that he is situated in the heart of every living entity, but the pure devotee knows no one but him. And he says, I know no one but him also. So one day, um, Srila Prabhupada was asked, you know, about this precise question. One of his disciples asked him, Srila Prabhupada, what does it mean that a pure devotee only sees Krishna? Does it mean that right now you're sitting in this hall, in this temple room, I'm sitting here talking to you? Does it mean that you don't see me? You just see Krishna? How is that? And Prabhupada said, no. He said he picked up his reading glasses and he said, he took them off and he said, when you see these reading glasses, what do you think of? And the disciple immediately said, oh, I think of you, Srila Prabhupada, because they are your glasses. And so Srila Prabhupada said precisely, whenever we see a pure devotee sees anything in the world, he immediately or she immediately thinks of Krishna because he or she remembers that nothing exists without Krishna. Krishna is in everything, but everything is not Krishna. This is the Achintya Shakti of Sri Krishna, that he can be in everything, but everything is not him. So it's not like I can worship this microphone and call it Krishna, but I can look at this microphone, and by looking at the microphone, I can remember that Krishna's energy created this microphone, and therefore I can remember Krishna. So Srila Prabhupada gave that example. How is it that a pure devotee always sees Krishna? So it's not that he doesn't see and doesn't act in the world, but he's constantly remembering Krishna because every single object, every single person that he or she is seeing is in his or her mind intimately connected with Krishna, and therefore he's able to remember the Lord. We'll take one more reference and then I'll take the screen sharing off. This is from Bhagavatam 4th canto, 12th chapter, 46th verse. This is about Dhruva Maharaj. And I'll quote just from the purport. As the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Lord are pleasing to hear, hearing about his devotees who are very dear to the Supreme Person is also pleasing and potent. If one simply reads over and over again about Dhruva Maharaj by hearing and reading this chapter, one can attain the highest perfection of life in any way he desires. Most importantly, he gets the chance to become a great devotee. To become a great devotee means to finish all miserable conditions of materialistic life. So, simply by reading about Dhruva Maharaj and by hearing and reading this chapter, the 12th chapter, one can attain the highest perfection of life and become a great devotee, which means to finish all miserable conditions of materialistic life. So, I would like to begin by offering prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesh Shunyavadi Paschati Deshatarane. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Grim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Guru Deenataranam. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. It's my great honor and privilege to be with you all today at ISKCON of Connecticut Hartford Temple to briefly discuss the glories of a devotee and author whose works are beloved in our lineage of Gaudiya Vaishnava worship, Thakur Srila Vrindavan Das. I feel that all of you listening to me are senior to me in devotion, if not in age or chronology in bhakti. And I pray for your blessings so that I can speak words in glorification of Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur that are scripturally accurate, pleasing to Sri Sri Jagannath Baldev Subhadra and Sri Sri Gaurnitai, Shaligram Sheila and Giriraj, and inspiring to all the assembled devotees. In particular, my heartfelt gratitude and obeisances to the Venerable Pyari Mohan Prabhu and his wife Jiva Devi, who are my worshipable seniors and the mentors and guides for this entire congregation. I pray for their blessings and empowerment to speak. Not a whole lot has been written about Vrindavan Das Thakur, though his seminal works, Chaitanya Bhagavat, and his other wonderful book, Sri Nityananda Charitamrita, are widely beloved in Gaudiya circles. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur was born on the Krishna Dvadashi or Mahadvadashi of the year 1507, about 514 years ago. Today is that day by Tithi. His mother Narayani was the daughter of Sri Nalina Pandit, who was the elder brother of Srivas Pandit. We know Srivas Pandit is the fifth member of the Panchatattva. We worship the Panchatattva as God in 5 features. The father of Vrindavan Das Thakur was Vaikuntanath Vipra. Sadly, when Narayani was pregnant with the baby Vrindavan Das Thakur, her husband passed away. Her life was plunged into turmoil and poverty upon his passing. She was still just a teenager and she was pregnant. So she was living in Mamgachi in Bengal, and she was given shelter by the most compassionate Vasudev Dutt. We know of Vasudev Dutt from Chaitanya Leela and how glorious his life is and how he was beloved of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in the household of Vasudev Dutt, she stayed for some time and she assisted his family in their household work and deity worship. Later, Narayani and her son Vrindavan Das moved to the house of Srivas Pandit. This was in Navadvip. And in Srivas Pandit's house, Narayani started living. She was his niece, and she started living with her son Vrindavan Das. This young woman, Narayani, had already become famous years ago because as a very young child, just out of the age of a toddler, she would witness Lord Chaitanya's most intimate kirtan pastimes in the household of Srivas Pandit in Navadvip. Once, Lord Chaitanya called out to her, "Narayani, chant Krishna's name and cry in ecstasy." This little girl, then barely a few years old, became extremely agitated with ecstatic spiritual emotions and started crying out, "Oh, Krishna, 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 Krishna." And tears were rolling down her eyes and she was showing all the signs of ecstasy. She began to weep, losing all perception of the external world. As tears streamed down her body, she fell to the ground, weeping in ecstasy. Lord Chaitanya mostly kept his godhood hidden, and he acted only like the Lord's devotee. After he came back from Gaya, where he had gone to do his father's last rites or Shraddha ceremony, and had accepted Srila Ishwara Puri as his guru. As we have heard before, Nimai or Lord Chaitanya, in his first 16 or 17 years of life, he externally did not even act as a devotee. He was a scholar of the topmost order, and he displayed and exhibited only scholarship of logic, grammar, the kind of thing that was very popular in Navadvip of those times, which was a center of learning for all of India at that time. And Lord Chaitanya displayed many pastimes in his youth, in his boyhood, childhood, um, that charmed the hearts of everyone around him. But all the devotees in Navadvip would look at him and shake their head in irritation, because they would think to themselves, such a brilliant boy, if only he would become a devotee of Krishna. And Lord Chaitanya, who is the super soul within everyone's heart because he's Krishna himself, but he's in a hidden form. And so Lord Chaitanya would just smile, and then he would be up to his pranks, and he would tease the devotees with his scholarship, and he would chase devotees like Gadadhar Pandit, for example, who would try to walk the opposite direction from where Nimai would be approaching. And he would chase Gadadhar Pandit, and then he would start talking about grammar and logic. And Gadadhar Pandit, he would just want to hear and talk about Krishna, and he couldn't do anything about it. And then the other devotees as well, they would just simply pray that please let Nimai become a devotee. And then when Nimai's father, Jagannath Mishra, passed away, Nimai went to Gaya to do the Shraddha ceremony. And there he met Srila Ishwara Puri, who he had previously met in Navadvip and served actually for 3 or 4 months while the great devotee Ishwara Puri stayed in Navadvip. And there Lord Chaitanya accepted Srila Ishwara Puri as his guru. When he came back from Gaya, it was like a switch had been turned. Mahaprabhu, or at that time he was not Mahaprabhu, he was Nimai or um, Vishwambar. He suddenly, from being a mundane scholar and acting like a pesky young man with lots of brains, he suddenly became the most humble and the most obedient devotee. And he would now, instead of teasing the devotees with his mundane scholarship, he would actually serve them as a menial servant. He would wash their clothes. He would carry things for them. He would bring them kusha grass mats as they were sitting down to chant or to do their pujas. He would bring them tilak. He would massage their feet. He would do all kinds of services. And the devotees, who were already very charmed with Nimai, but now that he had become a devotee, their hearts were blossoming with so much affection for this young man of about 17 years of age. And they were just blessing him. Yes, yes, you've become a devotee. Why was Nimai doing so much menial service and acting in this manner, acting as a menial servant of theirs? The acharyas tell us because bhakti is the cultivation of devotion and love for Krishna. Love is expressed through service, and that service is rendered to the Lord and even more so to his devotees. In one sense, anyone can do what Sri Chaitanya did for the devotees. We can all do that. In fact, even today in India, you can pay a person a very minimum wage to do those things, to wash your clothes, carry your things, bring your mat. Or here you can get a dry cleaner to do that stuff for you, or get a handyman to come and do stuff. But Lord Chaitanya considered that the treasure of his life was the opportunity to serve the devotees. And why was he doing this? Out of the millions of things that he did, why did his empowered biographers like Vrindavan Das Thakur, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, and Lochan Das Thakur, why did they focus on these incidents where Mahaprabhu would serve his devotees? Because they are so important for us. We should never take any opportunity to serve Krishna or Krishna's devotees to be something ordinary, what to speak of irritating or inconvenient. We should never take it cheaply. Even if we were paid tens and billions of dollars, that would not equal the value of having the opportunity to carry a grass mat for a devotee, or to massage his or her lotus feet, or bring them something that is important for them. It's a precious opportunity. One of the reasons our spiritual progress is impeded is because we don't really appreciate the value of the opportunities we get to serve. Our ego wants to be served, or we are lazy, we are tired, we have the excuse of, I work all week, and now, Pyare Mohan Prabhu and Jiva Mataji want us to come and serve at the temple. Like, don't I need a day or two of rest? Other people can do that. Why do I have to go and serve at the temple? Or we want to be glorified, not be a servant. And the acharyas tell us that to the degree that we hold on to these attachments, we cannot really appreciate the supreme, eternal, infinite value of serving and glorifying Krishna, serving and glorifying his devotees, and especially serving those who are dear to Krishna, that is his devotees. Krishna came over 5,000 years ago, and he taught us in Bhagavad Gita that this material world is dukhalayam ashashvatam. It's a place of misery and it's temporary. And that the only way out of the suffering of repeated birth and death in this material world is by surrendering to Krishna and rendering service to him and his devotees in love. But it is the nature of human beings that we do not learn simply by hearing or reading. We need live, active examples that we can follow and be inspired by. So, Krishna came as his own devotee more than 500 years ago in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he taught us how to surrender to Krishna, how to perform the bhakti that Sri Krishna talks about in Bhagavad Gita, and how to perfect our lives. Sri Chaitanya brought a most sublime process with him, the process of Nama Sankirtana, or the congregational chanting of Krishna's holy names. Sri Chaitanya also showed by his own example the importance of immersing oneself in Harikatha, or topics about Krishna. Harinam, that is the chanting of the holy name, whether we chant on beads, which is one-on-one our relationship with Krishna every day that we establish, or congregationally with other devotees, which is called Kirtan, as well as Harikatha, that is talks about Krishna or talks by Krishna. These two things, Harinam and Harikatha, they go together, hand in hand. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada, our Prabhupada's Guru Maharaj, has explained that Harikatha is the Swarup Shakti, or the personal energy of Harinam. So just as we don't worship Krishna alone, but we worship him with his Swarup Shakti, his personal energy, Srimati Radharani. Recitation of Harinam is incomplete unless it is accompanied by hearing Harikatha. Hearing Harikatha awakens us to our eternal relationship with Krishna, tells us who he really is, and it fuels our desire to chant and to know why we are chanting. In this age, attention spans are short and memories are even shorter. So the Shastras tell us no other means of self-realization will work in this age. Not meditation, Om Shanti, or closing your eyes, Lotus Mudra, not meditation, not elaborate fire sacrifices that last for days and weeks and months and years, nor elaborate deity worship. Of course, we perform deity worship in our ISKCON temples as well as in our own homes for some important reasons. First, we learn how to regard Krishna as a person, not just some formless, intangible energy. The Shastras tell us that Krishna is that also. He is inconceivable, but he is essentially first and foremost a person. And from him come the energies, that all the other energies that we see or we don't see. The formless, intangible energy that many meditators and speculators think about is actually one of Krishna's energies, the Brahma Jyoti. But the original form of the divine is Krishna as a person. And so when he appears in his deity form and we learn to worship the deity, we learn how to regard Krishna as a person. And we purify our hearts by offering this deity form of Krishna service on a daily basis. We dress him, we cook for him, we pray to him, we offer articles of worship to him. Satswarup Maharaj and Sachinandan Maharaj, two of my Shiksha gurus, I've heard them or read in their writings talk about how it is important for us when we are doing anything and we have deity form of the Lord at home to converse with the deity form of the Lord, to give him a report. For example, you have at the end of the day come before the deity and talk to him and tell him what happened in your day and how you're feeling. And they talk about the importance of doing our japa, our kirtan, our deity worship with the full knowledge that this is not a statue that is standing before me. It is factually the son of Maharaj Nanda. And he's appeared in this merciful form simply to accept worship from me and to enable me to reconnect with him on a personal level. And of course, the third reason why we worship the deity is we get ready to serve Krishna personally in the spiritual world whenever we do go back home, back to Goloka. I heard one lecture by Jananivas Prabhu, one of the famous twins in Mayapur. He talked about how the jiva, after the living entity, after getting completely purified, goes to that planet in whichever material universe Sri Krishna is appearing in that material universe, and then takes birth among Krishna's devotees and gets trained up as a servant, how to serve Krishna personally, whatever the service is of that particular living entity in the spiritual world. But Jananivas Prabhu, he was quoting from Shastra, but he said that a pujari who serves Krishna throughout his life with a pure heart and offers worship completely selflessly and knowing that that deity of Krishna is a person, is the person Krishna, is not an image of Krishna, not a representation, but it's Krishna himself standing on the altar. That pujari does not go back to that material world where Krishna is appearing. He or she goes straight back to the spiritual world to serve Sri Krishna because the pujari is already trained up. Isn't that a nice incentive for us to do our deity seva nicely? So there are numerous examples of how deities reciprocate with their worshippers, and we've heard so many lectures and read so many stories about that. And we know there are instructions in the Shastra about how the deity is actually Krishna, not just a representation of Krishna. But in this age of Kali, deity worship alone for most people will not yield spiritual perfection. For the mass of people, Sri Chaitanya brought this process of Sankirtana, which is so easy and so sublime. Chant the holy names congregationally and on our beads. But before Sri Chaitanya brought the process of Nama Sankirtan into the open for everyone to taste and benefit from without discrimination, he himself tasted the joy of that process in the association of his most confidential devotees in Navadvip. Every night, Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat describes, for 1 full year, Sri Chaitanya performed night-long kirtans in Srivas Angan. The courtyard of the house where Srivas Pandit lived with his family members, including his brothers, and including Narayani, who was there. Well, at that time, she wasn't there with her boy because she was still a very young child. She was 4 years old. She later on came to Srivas Pandit's house with Vrindavan Das, but by that time the Lord had gone to Puri. But the night-long kirtans that lasted one full year, they were witnessed by Narayani, and she was allowed to be a part of that, those kirtans. Those kirtans were very confidential and exclusive. The Lord would only allow his closest associates to attend those kirtans. He would dance all night with his devotees, and he would cry out in separation from Krishna in the mood of a devotee. Only the purest devotees, his personal associates, were given entrance into these 1 year long nightly kirtans, because others would simply not understand the level that Mahaprabhu and his devotees were communicating with Krishna, and at what level and with what intensity they were chanting and hearing the holy names. Srivas Pandit's family, including Narayani, was most fortunate in witnessing Mahaprabhu's most intimate pastimes. Indeed, Chaitanya Bhagavat describes that even the servants and the animals in Srivas Pandit's household got the Lord's mercy simply because they were connected with Srivas Pandit. Even the highest demigods in the heavenly planets rarely have the darshan of the Supreme Lord in person, face to face, like this. In the pastime of Ambarish Maharaj and Durvasa Muni, Lord Vishnu, that is Krishna, declares to Durvasa Muni, this is in Srimad Bhagavatam 9.4.63, what to speak of my devotee? Even those who are the devotees of my devotees are very dear to me. There is no higher process, the scriptures tell us, than to become dear to Krishna's devotees by sincerely serving them and helping them to come closer to Krishna themselves. That is the secret of how we can earn Krishna's mercy upon ourselves. By serving Srila Prabhupada and his mission of sharing Krishna Bhakti widely, of having centers like ISKCON Hartford, where people can come and congregate, worship the deity, get together and hear talks about Krishna, serve the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, honor prasad together, chant Hare Krishna. By serving this mission, we become dear to Krishna and to Srila Prabhupada, and we earn the favor of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself in the most munificent form of his own devotee. This little girl, Narayani, would regularly get the remnants of Lord Chaitanya. When Mahaprabhu would eat something, he would personally give it to Narayani. Gaura Ganoddesh Deepika, the authoritative book that describes the different characters in Gaur Leela and who they are in the spiritual world and who they were in Krishna Leela in Vrindavan 5,000 years ago, that book describes how she was Kilimbika in Krishna Leela. Kilimbika was the younger sister of Krishna's nurse, Ambika. Ambika appeared in Gaur Leela as Srivas Pandit's wife, Malini. And Kilimbika, who appeared as Narayani in Gaur Leela, would regularly get the remnants of what Krishna had eaten. This same Narayani witnessed so many of Mahaprabhu's sublime pastimes in Navadvip and narrated them later to her son Vrindavan Das Thakur. Vrindavan Das Thakur based his biography of Lord Chaitanya on the narrations he had heard from his mother, who was an eyewitness to these pastimes, and also on the diaries of Murari Gupta, who served Mahaprabhu in the early years when Mahaprabhu lived in Navadvip. Vrindavan Das Thakur was very dear to the Vaishnavas. In particular, Lord Nityananda was very fond of him. It is described that Vrindavan Das was the last disciple of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, the last disciple that he accepted before he wound up his pastimes and went back to the spiritual world. Nityananda Prabhu showered his unlimited blessings upon Vrindavan Das. He was very fond of him. And he ordered Vrindavan Das to write about Lord Chaitanya. Now we know from Chaitanya Charitamrita of Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami that Lord Nityananda appeared to Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami also in a dream and ordered him to to go to Vrindavan and to write about Lord Chaitanya. So in our tradition, you can see Lord Nityananda's hand in all the writings we have access to. And he specifically ordered these devotees to write about Lord Gauranga or Lord Chaitanya. So after a little while of having grown up in Navadvip, Vrindavan Das moved to Denur, where he made his Shripat or his Bhajan Kutir. Denur is a little village close to Katwa, where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas. There in Denur, Vrindavan Das wrote his biography of Lord Chaitanya in 1535 AD, the year after Sri Chaitanya left this world. Initially, that biography was called Chaitanya Mangal. In his biography of Sri Chaitanya, Vrindavan Das primarily narrates the pastimes of Mahaprabhu's early life and some pastimes of Mahaprabhu's life after Lord Chaitanya had moved to Puri at age 24. But Vrindavan Das became so absorbed in describing the pastimes of his guru, Lord Nityananda, that he gave only a very abbreviated form of Sri Chaitanya's later pastimes. He was afraid that his book was already becoming too big and he didn't want to make it bigger. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who later wrote Chaitanya Charitamrita, writes extensively about Vrindavan Das Thakur and he glorifies him as the Vyasadev of Chaitanya Leela. Just like Srila Vyasadev wrote Srimad Bhagavatam, Kaviraj Goswami calls Vrindavan Das the authorized biographer of Sri Chaitanya and equal to Vyasadev. Gaura Ganodesh Deepika also reveals the identity of Vrindavan Das Thakur as Vyasadev. Because he is described as the Vyas of Gaur Leela, and because Lochan Das Thakur had also written a biography of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called Chaitanya Mangal, the Vaishnavas changed the name of Vrindavan Das's book to Chaitanya Bhagavat. Just as Vyasadev wrote Srimad Bhagavat or Bhagavatam, Vrindavan Das's book became Chaitanya Bhagavat. Kaviraj Goswami declares in Chaitanya Charitamrita that Lord Chaitanya himself has spoken through the mouth of Vrindavan Das in this book. He says that Chaitanya Bhagavat has the power to deliver the entire world and to make even envious atheists into great Vaishnavas. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur asked his followers to read Chaitanya Bhagavat 100 times in their lifetimes. He himself wrote a commentary on it. Actually, if you go to iskondesiretree.com or go to YouTube, you can find the audio narrations of Chaitanya Bhagavat. They are narrated by a devotee called Damodar Das. He's got the most sublime voice, and there is background music which is light and very mellifluous and beautiful. And you can, while you're cooking or you're doing some work and or traveling somewhere, you can just keep on hearing Chaitanya Bhagavat's chapters one after the other, and in this way immerse yourself in this great work. It's a very rasika work. It's the reason why works like this have an effect on our heart is because they are written by someone who has deep love for the Lord. And that deep love is infectious. So when we hear this, Chaitanya Bhagavat or Srimad Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita, we get infected with the love that these writers have for the Lord. In an initiation lecture in Boston, Srila Prabhupada called Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur one of the important acharyas in our lineage, and that we should pray to him for his mercy. Vrindavan Das was very dear to Lord Nityananda's consort, Janava Devi, who, after Lord Nityananda departed, became the acharya for the entire Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. All the great souls who were at that time on the planet, like Jiva Goswami and Lokanath Das Goswami, they accepted Janava Devi as the foremost acharya. So Vrindavan Das was very dear to her. He was one of the most respected guests of honor at the first Gaur Purnima festival that was organized in Kheturi by Narottam Das Thakur. If there is one thing that Chaitanya Bhagavat stresses, it is that worshipping, honoring, and serving the Vaishnavas is the only means of capturing Sri Krishna's heart. Again and again, Vrindavan Das Thakur stresses that we must avoid offending the Vaishnavas if we want our spiritual life to flourish. In addition, every chapter of Chaitanya Bhagavat is full of the most munificent benedictions upon those who read or hear it. And you can see it for yourself, every single chapter. Example, Madhya Leela, chapter 4 of Chaitanya Bhagavat, which describes the joy of Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya when they first met in Navadvip. Vrindavan Das Thakur writes, one who desires to cross over this ocean of nations and drown in the nectarine waters of love of Godhead must take shelter of the lotus feet of Nitai Gaurachandra. Whoever sings and glorifies this wonderful pastime will be blessed by Lord Vishwambar or Lord Chaitanya, along with his entire family. Or at the end of Adi Leela, chapter 16, where Thakur Srila Haridas's life is described and glorified, Vrindavan Das says this: anyone who listens with faith and devotion to these narrations will find eternal shelter at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Sri Gaurachandra. And because Krishna moves heaven and earth to make the words of his pure devotees come true, we who read or hear Chaitanya Bhagavat with faith and attention have great hope, because Thakur Vrindavan Das has said that this will happen. So on this appearance day of Vrindavan Das Thakur, let us pray to this great Vaishnavacharya for his blessings and pray for his mercy so that we can carry out his instructions in our own life. I would like to end very briefly by sharing one or two more slides. These are the deities worshipped by Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur in Denur at his Shripat or Bhajan Kutir, and their names are Sri Sri Nitai Gauranga Rai and Jagannath Baldev Subhadra. There are no coincidences in spiritual lives, and the deities worshipped on the altar of ISKCON of Connecticut, Hartford, are Gaurnitai and Jagannath Baldev Subhadra. And of course, you have Sheilas and Giriraj. But I thought that was wonderful, and we can meditate on these deities and pray to them and pray to our own deities in ISKCON, Connecticut. I would like to summarize and then take comments or questions. We heard how it is essential for us to hear about devotees. The references that I referred to were Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 13th chapter, verses 3 and 4, and Bhagavatam, 4th canto, chapter 12, verse 46. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared to teach us by his own example that we should serve devotees and never offend them. We should constantly do Harinam, Japa and Kirtan, and we should be absorbed in Harikatha. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur appeared on this day, today, in 1507. We heard how he is the Vyasdev of Gaura Leela. He wrote Chaitanya Bhagavat. He also wrote Nityananda Charitamrita. But in Chaitanya Bhagavat, he stressed two things above all: serve the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis and never offend the devotees. I thank you very much for your kind attention and tolerance of my many shortcomings. I hope you got something of inspiration out of this little discussion. And if you have any corrections, comments, or questions, I'll be happy to take them. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you very much for an inspiring talk, Shuddha Dalal Prabhu. It was wonderful. I definitely got a great deal of inspiration.
Thank you, Sudevi Priya Devi.
Thank you, Yashoda Dulal Prabhu. Really nice class.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, that audio link that you mentioned, is it possible to post it for us of
You mean-
the Chaitanya Bhagavat?
Yeah. Maybe when Amrita Kelly, if you are able to go to audio.iskondesiretree.com and just type in Chaitanya Bhagavat, when it comes up, you can post that link. Or you can go to YouTube and just type and just search for audio Chaitanya Bhagavat.
Geetamala Mataji, I'll share it after the
Yeah, no problem. Since he has given the clue, I can go to search for it. Thank you. That's very nice that we can hear it anytime,
Mm-hmm. And the devotee who is reading it, his voice is so beautiful, you will just get lost. There is a danger if you're doing something, you might actually stop doing it and just hear Chaitanya Bhagavat.
That sounds very nice.
Krishna, Yashoda, Dulal, very wonderful class. I really liked it a lot. I have one question. I'm not trying to ask the question to try to stump the speaker. I don't really know. It's just a speculation for how to answer it.
Mhm.
But when you mentioned how Lord Chaitanya would have these special kirtans with just a few devotees every single day or every single night, Srivas Angam, and they would only let certain devotees in. How did the other devotees feel about that?
How did the other, meaning the ones who were excluded, feel about that?
Yes.
So, from my reading and from what I've heard, anyone who was sincerely following, because at that time, the number of devotees was not huge. It was not all of Navadvip. So the devotees who were sincerely following the process and serving Sri Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were allowed into the kirtan. The ones who were not, and Chaitanya Bhagavat actually describes this, as you know, in detail, that the people who were not admitted to these kirtans, some of them said, well, we are not great devotees, so yes, it's natural that we are not allowed. But many of them would blaspheme Lord Chaitanya and especially would blaspheme Srivas Pandit. And they would go to extents of like spreading rumors that he's a Shakta worshipper and that he eats meat and drinks wine in secrecy and that he's actually not a devotee of Krishna, he's just pretending. So yes, there were many such, and we hear about one particular person. I'm trying to remember his name. It slips my mind.
Chapal Gopal.
Chapal Gopal. Thank you. He actually
Gopal Chapal. Okay.
Gopal Chapala. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm not sure.
He left some articles on the doorstep of Srivas Pandit, like meat and wine, and he wanted to show the world that, see, this is what Srivas Pandit is doing. And he was totally baffled when Srivas Pandit came out and declared to the neighbors very smilingly, yes, I do these things. I'm not actually a devotee. I'm a pretender. And the neighbors said, no, you're a devotee. What are you talking about? And then Gopal Chapala actually contracted leprosy. And he had to beg forgiveness from Srivas Pandit because Mahaprabhu would not forgive him. He said, no, I cannot do that. Just like Ambarish Maharaj, Durvas Muni offended Ambarish Maharaj, and Lord Vishnu said, I cannot do anything for you, Durvas Muni. Go back to Ambarish and seek his forgiveness. So Mahaprabhu said, seek the forgiveness of the one you offended. And if he forgives you, then I'll give you my mercy. So yeah, so my understanding is that the sincere people were allowed into the kirtan. There's that famous brahmachari who was the milk drinking brahmachari. He sneaked into the kirtan. Srivas Pandit sneaked him in after much pleas. He was a very austere, sincere soul, but he was not yet there as a devotee. And Mahaprabhu was furious with him and ordered him to be thrown out of that kirtan when he found out. But then the brahmachari's reaction was so meek and subservient that Mahaprabhu's heart softened when he saw that. And he says, let him come back and be in this kirtan. And so, yeah, so that's my understanding. Does that satisfy you in terms of your question?
Yes, very, very, very good answer. For some reason, I was thinking that there was all these devotees, but they were all these sincere devotees that were around at the time were able to come in.
Yeah.
So that was a very good answer. Very nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your encouragement. And of course, we know that the first public kirtan was the the huge march that took place upon the Chandkazi's house that Mahaprabhu organized, because the Chandkazi had ordered that the devotees should be beaten up and their mridanga should be broken and kartals should be thrown in the Ganges and devotees should be killed if they kept on doing kirtan. And then Mahaprabhu organized this Mahasankirtan for the first time. And at that time, millions of people marched. And that was the first public kirtan that Mahaprabhu did. And then, of course, he ordered Nityananda and all his associates to spread the holy name and go door to door, every town and village, and chant the holy name, which his followers are now doing, thanks to Srila Prabhupada and his followers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Just a quick comment, Yashoda Dulal Prabhu, that Narayani, when she was very little, she was at her uncle's house, Vrindavan Das Thakur's mother. She used to honor the remnants of Mahaprabhu. And that was another reason why she attracted that mercy, right? To, have Vrindavan Das Thakur as her child.
Yeah.
And when I first read that, I was reminded of Narad Muni and his mother serving the saintly people, during the 4 months of Chaturmas, and then getting mercy. So I was, I was encouraged that, all that effort we have made of stealing Mahaprasadam from sannyasi's plates, it's worth the effort.
Yes. Actually, in the Memories book by Siddhanta Prabhu, the devotee who's got these Memories videotapes or DVDs series. So he also publishes books of these memories by Srila Prabhupada's disciples. I think it's the second volume. In the second volume, in the preface, Siddhanta Prabhu writes how he was on a walk with Srila Prabhupada one morning walk, and he personally heard Srila Prabhupada say this. So we've heard that prasadam has such great potency that anyone who eats it, even a dog or an insect, in their next life they will get a human birth. Yeah, this is what we've heard. Prabhupada said something even more far out than that. Prabhupada told him that anyone who honors prasadam, whether they know that it is prasadam or not, whether they believe in it or not, in their next life, they take birth not just as a human being, but in a devotee's family.
Wow.
Isn't that far out?
Yeah.
So it also encourages us to do prasadam distribution wherever we are, workplace, out in the streets, do appropriate prasadam distribution. Someone comes to your home to repair, your wall or, put in a new toilet or something, give them some prasadam. It has massive effects.
Thank you very much, Yashoda Dulal Prabhu. Once again, really nice class.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Amrita Keli Devi, for asking me to speak.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandapat Jai Sri Prabhupada. It's pretty hot here in Connecticut, but you really soothed our heart by your sweet talk about Vrindavan Das Thakur and Chaitanya Bhagavat. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. I guess if there are no more comments in a minute's time or 2 minutes' time, we will have darshan, yes?
We have 2 more minutes. Jiva Mataji generally is very punctual. She's ready at the altar. She blows the conch shell at 5. If there are no, we have 2 more minutes. 1 minute now, actually. It's 4:59. So if somebody wants, you have 60 seconds. Now's your chance.
Well, we'd like you to come down when this COVID-19 is over to our new temple and do a Sunday program in person.
That'd be wonderful. I would love to come and see the new temple, and especially to see you and Jiva Mataji and all the other devotees.
Yeah, we have. It's been a long time since
Yes.
this association. So
Too long.
it shouldn't be too long. We should be opening up for our Sunday programs. There'll be certain restrictions, but we will be opening up in a few weeks.
Wonderful. Look forward to seeing you all again.
So let me know when you're available.
Sure. Thank you, Pyare Mohan Prabhu.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Bye.
Nitai Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Bye.
Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyev
Pasindu Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Yashoda Dalal Prabhu ki
Hare
jai.
Krishna.
बलदेव सुभद्रा मैया जी की जय गौर निताई जी की जय। लक्ष्मी नरसिम्हा भगवान जय प्रभुपाद की प्रभुपाद जय शीला प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद जय शीला प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद प्रभुपाद जय जय नमो विष्णु पदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले नमो विष्णु पदाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमद् भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी नित्य नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी आश्रया विसतारिणे नमस्ते
सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी
प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी आश्रया विसतारिणे जयो जय गौराचन्दे आरती शोभाति भजन गौराचन्दे आरती शोभा Adi Devagana
Arati kare na Brahma Adi Devagana
Hari Adi Kore Tamarulaya
Hari Adi Kori Chamarulaya
Sanjaya Mukunda Doshadikari
Sanjaya Mukunda Vasu Dosaya Vidari
Shiva Bhaje Kanta Bhaje Bhaje Kartara Shiva
Baje Ganta Baje Baje Koratana
Madhura Viranga Bhaje Paramaharasana Madhura
Vidanga Baje Paramarasana
Shankha Bhaje Ghanta Bhaje Madhur 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 Bhaje
Shankha Baje Ganta Baje Madhur 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 Baje
Shankha Bhaje Ghanta Bhaje Madhur 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 Bhaje
Shankha Baje Ganta Baje Madhur 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 Baje Madhura 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 Baje Jaya Gauranika Jaya Gauranika Jaya Gauranika Jaya Gauranika
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol
Viva Koti Chandra Vara Navudara
Shiva Bahu Koti Chandra Vadana Ujjala
Valade Shivana Mala Hare Jalamala
Radhe Sevana Mala Hare Jalamala
Shiva Chuka Narada Premi Garaga
Shiva Bhagavati Vinodare Gorara Sampada
Bhakti Vinoda Gorara Sampada
Bhagavati Vinodare Gorara Sampada
Shiva Jayo Jaya Gora Chande Arati Kashoha
Shiva Jaya Jaya Gora Chande Arati Kashoha
Jana Vitada Vane Jana Manano Gorange Arati Shobha Jagana Manano Gorange Gorange Arati Shobha Jagana Manano Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Jaya Shri
Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta-vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Hare
Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Hare
Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama
Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram
Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama
Rama
Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama
Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jai Radha Shama Sundara Radha Shama Sundara Radhe.
Jaya Radha Shyam Sundara Shyam Sundara
Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Devi.
Jaya Jagannath Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Devi.
Jayo Lakshmi Narasimha Jayo Lakshmi Narasimha Jayo Lakshmi Narasimha Jayo Lakshmi Narasimha.
Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha.
Jaya Gaura Nitai Jaya Gaura Nitai Jaya Gaura Nitai Jaya Gaura Nitai.
Jaya Garanita Jaya Garanita Jaya Garanita Jaya Garanita.
Jaya Radha Damodare Radha Damodare Radhe.
Jaya Radha Damodara Radha Damodara Radhe.
Jaya Laddu Gopal Jaya Laddu Gopal Jaya Laddu Gopal Jaya Laddu Gopal.
Jaya Laddu Gopal Jaya Laddu Gopal Jaya Laddu Gopal Jaya Laddu Gopal.
Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Bol
Jaya Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Jaya
Jaya Guru Dev Guru Dev Guru Dev Jaya Jaya Guru Dev.
Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvrajakacharu Jasotara Sata Shri Shri Maharaj Divine Grace Srila Bhai Charan Aravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parvrajakacharu Jasotara Sata Shri Shri Maharaj Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasri Gaura Bhaktavinda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Mayapur Dham ki jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Jamuna Mai ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shrimati Tulsi Maharani ki jai. Lord Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Devi ki jai. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai. Lord Nrsingadeva ki jai. Shri Shalagram Shilas ki jai. Shri Giriraj Maharaj ki jai. Samaveta Bhaktavinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Prahlada Ladadaine. Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha. शीलाटङ्कानकालाये ito narsimho parato narsimho ito narsimho parato narsimho yato yato yami tato narsimho yato yato yami tato narsimho Bahir narsimho hrudaye narsimho Bahir narsimho hrudaye narsimho Narasingamadim sharanam prapate Narasingamadim sharanam prapate Tava kara kamalavare naka adbhuta shringa dalita hiranyakashipu tanu bringa keshavadrita narahari rupa jai jagadisha hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Tava kara kamalavare naka adbhuta shringa dalita hiranyakashipu tanu bringa keshavadrita narahari rupa jai jagadisha hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jaya Nashingadev Jaya Nashingadev Jaya Nashingadev Jaya Nashingadev Jaya Bhakta Prahlad Jaya Bhakta Prahlad Jaya Bhakta Prahlad Jaya Bhakta Prahlad Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
विघ्ननाशक नरसिंहदेव भगवान की
जय।
भक्त प्रहलाद की
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki. Gaur Premanande. Hari
हरे
Hari.
हरि
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us for the Sunday program this evening. Once again, I would like to thank His Grace Yashoda Dulal Prabhu for a wonderful class on the life and teachings of Shri Vrindavan Das Thakur. We have one fee sponsor for today. Anonymous is sponsoring for late Bhuvaneshwar. Hari Bol. Today is Ekadashi. So once the Sunday program concludes in a couple of minutes, we will have Ekadashi Kirtan from 6 to 7 p.m. tonight. So you guys, you don't have to log off. You can continue on the same Zoom information, and we will start with Ekadashi Kirtan tentatively around 6 p.m. As I mentioned, today is Ekadashi. We fast from grains and beans, and the fast breaking time tomorrow, Monday, June 7th, is 5:25 a.m. to 10:25 a.m. And once again, thank you very much for joining us this evening. We will have chanting for the feast for the program sponsors now.
Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Premanande Hare Om. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Sri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama eva kevala. Kalo nasteva, nasteva, nasteva gatiranyatha. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama eva kevala. Kalo nasteva, nasteva, nasteva gatiranyatha. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Rama eva kevala. Kalo nasteva, nasteva, nasteva gatiranyatha. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Anonymous sponsoring for late Bhuvaneshwar ki jai. We'll make arrangements for the Mahaprasadam to be delivered to our program sponsors. This brings us to the conclusion of the Sunday evening program today. It's 5:44 p.m. Ekadashi Kirtan will start at 6 p.m. I believe that gives everybody a 15 minutes break, and then we will, reconvene at 6 p.m.
I'd just like to say something about Bhuvaneshwar Prabhu.
Go ahead, Pyare Prabhu.
He was in Vrindavan for the last, almost 30 years? About 30 years cooking for the deities. Before that, he was in Chicago. We were there, we were together. He was a cook. He was on Radha Damodar. He was a cook. He also had a very dry sense of humor, like he acted serious, but he would say really funny things. He was a really great soul. He had a lot of difficulties, but he left his body in Vrindavan, where he's been serving, and at the Krishna Balaram Mandir. He had a room there. I would go visit him every time I went to India. And he was a really great, ordinary devotee. And he left his body in Vrindavan. And I mean, from what I understand, you leave your body in Vrindavan, you go back to Godhead. So I'm pretty sure he went back to Godhead. He gave so much of his life just to serving Krishna. So just for people who don't know anything about Bhuvaneshwar, And he led kirtans in Vrindavan. He gave classes in Vrindavan. He was a wonderful devotee. Anyway, that's what I have to say about him. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for sharing that, Pare Prabhu. I
Well,
like how you said he was a great ordinary devotee.
yeah, that's what he was.
Lesson in humility. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Hare Krishna.
Krishna, glories to Prabhupada.
All goes to Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada.
Ki jai.